Hi, my name is Latasha Palmer, running for Tacoma City Council, Position 6, citywide, and I'm running to make sure that we can reclaim housing for all, put people and planet before profit, bring those green jobs to Tacoma, and also to make sure that we're centering our neighborhoods. We got to get back to neighborhood level of participation and making sure we go block by block in solving our issues. So I'm happy to be here, and today we're riding Route 41. Yeah, great question. So I think there's maybe two of my recent experiences that kind of are examples of how the city is kind of feeling about that initiative, or how they felt about it. One of those was, just the other weekend, I'm knocking doors as we do, campaigning, and came across a grandma who over by Geiger Elementary, and is telling me about her concerns with being able to just walk to school with her kiddos, or her grandchildren, and how they've almost been hit a couple times doing that. And then another conversation that I've had with folks, with a couple of folks in my personal neighborhood up in Hilltop. We just had traffic improvements on J Street, and they did the bike lanes and blocked off traffic in that. And then there's folks that are like, what is this? It was just kind of there one day, and they didn't have much of an input or say in it being there. Didn't quite understand it. And even me, somebody who supports that kind of work, my introduction to it was, oh, I can't drive down J Street anymore. So it was an inconvenience. And that's not how we want to introduce these things to people. So I think we need to do more when it comes to like buy-in when we're doing these types of things. I know people want, what I'm hearing is people want, they want safe streets, and they want to be able to walk and bike safely and get their kids to school. They don't want to pay more than their fair share for these things to happen. They want to make sure that everybody's inputting equally, and they want to make sure that they understand and see the benefit to themselves. So I think that's where the city can work on this, is better communication and collaboration with the community. Yeah, so Vision Zero is, I think, an amazing step forward. I was present online at the county council meeting where folks were getting up and telling their amazing stories about, and tragic stories, frankly, about their family members and things that happen in traffic fatalities, people losing their parents, and people losing their children over these types of things. And so, and those are things that don't kind of come through on like a 311. If we ask people when stuff like this are concerning to you, report these things on 311. We don't get those types of stories, or the impact of these things through that service. And so I think there's a little bit of work to do when it comes to the way that we communicate with our folks. And I think I'm a huge proponent of like neighborhood councils and hubs, where people can come together and bring their voice together, tell their stories of what's concerning to them. That allows them to voice what their concerns are, and it allows city council to hear, what is important to the most people. So we're able to listen and prioritize. And then, you also get different perspectives. I think that's important. Sally over here might think that, autonomous vehicles are going to be a concern in the future, but it wasn't on our radar. And then, this other person might think that, hey, I would love to ride bikes, but I can't I'm afraid that it might be stolen. And I know I can't put this on my house insurance. And so I'm afraid to ride my bike. And so it's bringing up different concerns that affect different folks. But I think we just need, I think neighborhood hubs and developing those would be a huge benefit to us, and being able to make that communication happen. That's a great question. So city's had issues lately, right? Like we know in our last budget session that there was a $24 million deficit, and we know that things are happening at the federal level to make funding even tighter for projects in the city. And so it's a concern, and it's a valid question for sure. I can also tell you a little bit about my just get in the back tax. So, if you're a mom or a caretaker of any kind, then you understand, your kiddo, when you tell them to get in the bath, it's always I don't want to, or, it's a huge fight. But then once they're in the bath, they love it. It's hard to get them out. It's beneficial to them, beneficial to everyone else because they don't have to smell them. I think we take that same approach with, making sure that our wealthy folks and our big corporations are paying their fair share into these types of projects. And, at first you might get a little bit of pushback, but once we help them understand that this is beneficial to them as well, then I think it gets a lot easier. I'm also a huge proponent of, a supporter of public banking as an option. Instead of there being fees and stuff that we're paying to Wall Street, we can make sure that our money's coming back and staying locally and going towards projects like this. And then lastly, I'm a huge advocate of community bonds. So if there's things that, hey, the city can't take care of, and we understand this because there's been clear communication that, hey, this money's going to this and we can't do this right now, but it's important to our neighborhood. Hey, let's make a community bond, so make sure that we can pay into this project if we want to, and we're the ones who are gonna reap that reward. So there's lots of different ways we can be creative with coming up with funds for these different projects. Yeah, so I think it's a great question to ask. It does not seem fair that we're not putting the needed funds, the needed amount of funds towards this vital service. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think it can be true that we need to fund these types of services, and it's better for everyone in the city to do so. I also think it can be true that we need to exhaust other avenues of trying to find this funds before we put it more on the backs of folks that are just trying to make ends meet. I think we, like we've talked about earlier with some of the more progressive taxes and that sort of thing, I think there's funds to be found there. So yes, do we need to move forward and make sure that we have enough to cover this service? Absolutely. I would hopefully want to see our other avenues of being able to do so exhausted before we again put it towards people who are just working class folks. Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, I think the city's role is definitely making sure that we champion finding these avenues of funding, and that we make sure that both the funding that we go for and the implementation are equitable to everybody in the city. Okay. So yeah, as an at-large representative, it's my job to make sure that everybody in the city is safe and has equitable access to things like transportation. So my concern is for everyone. I think it's kind of my job in order to think about not just doing the bare minimum, but making sure that we're forward thinking and thinking about how these changes and improvements are going to affect everybody in the city. I lived in New York for a little bit, and the whole time I was there, I didn't use a car. It was me and my 3 kiddos, and it was easy to get from one place to another because the transportation was reliable, and I felt safe going to the stops that I'm going to. And so we can't just kind of put a stop in this one place because we know that there's more traffic there. We do that, but we also need to make sure that it's going to be accessible and used. These improvements don't do anything unless they're actually used and utilized. So how can we make sure, like a single mom with 3 kids is going to feel safe taking that transit stop? So looking at the little nuances and how we can forward-proof or future-proof the improvements that we're making in order to benefit the most people. Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of an opportunity to bring age more into the conversation. I think different people from different generations use transportation differently. And, you know, it's one thing for me to tell Sally that, you know, you've been driving your whole life, but we're looking at ways to get rid of that and change to something new, versus, hey, you know, Sally's grandson who actually doesn't really want to. Oh, so sorry. Did I start over? So Sally's grandson, in order, where was I? Okay.
You've been talking about seniors no longer driving, and then Sally's grandson.
Yeah. Let me reword that a little bit. So different generations use public transportation in different ways, and we need to make sure we're addressing the needs of all those folks. You know, our younger folks are at a point where a lot of them don't even want to drive anymore. They understand that it's kind of an inefficient way to get around. They don't have the funds to pay for maintenance on their vehicles. They want to just be able to hop on, hop off where they're trying to go. And then we have our elderly folks who've been driving around, our elders, their whole lives. And so, you know, changing can be a little bit difficult. And so I think we bring both of those folks into conversation with each other, because it's a little paternalistic for the city to come in and tell our elders, hey, we need to change this because of this, and this. But if we have our younger folks that care about our younger folks, and we have those guys coming into the conversation and letting, hey, Aunt Susie, this is something that I need to be able to get to school safely or to get to work safely. I don't want a car. This is how things are changing. They're going to listen to their family member or our youth in the community a little bit more than they're going to listen to, you know, just us telling them what needs to happen. So I think we bring everybody to the table, and again, that those neighborhood hubs are a good place to do stuff like that, and they'll solve the problems on their own.